Hey, what's up? Lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the June 2023 Netflix original film Nimona. This is based on a graphic novel series of the same name. This is, and I timed it, an hour 34 minutes of the movie, and then you have like 15 minutes of like credits after, which is long for credits, but perfect hour and a half film. This has an interesting backstory because this originally was in production with Blue Sky Animation Studios, which was owned by 20th Century Fox. That was the parent company. 20th Century Fox was then bought by the Walt Disney Company, and they scrapped the project. It was already like, what was it, 75% done, something like that? And they scrapped the project. And so they were trying to then find a new buyer for the project that was pretty much almost completed. And then Netflix picked it up, finished it out with their animation studio, and it's now nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Film. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. It's incredible. I know nothing of the graphic novel series. I don't have any reference point. I can only judge it based on the information, the artistic style, the production value, the cinematography, the storyboarding, the score that I was just presented. One of the best things I've ever seen. No joke. And so to have this beautiful medieval aesthetic with that futuristic vibe to it, flying cars, electric swords, things of that nature, right? Technology, social media, phones, tablets, billboards, involving this city that was formed because the founder, Glorith, fought this monster, and then it's been knights versus monsters ever since for 1,000 years, right? That's the basic premise. This knight Ballister is framed for the murder of the queen, and his boyfriend, they're not married. Let's say boyfriend. They don't use the B word, but they confess their love to each other numerous times throughout the film. He is a direct descendant of the founder, Ambrosius, and he therefore has to, is he going to fight his best friend? Is he going to fight for the kingdom? What is he going to do, right? So then there's a whole battle. Behind the scenes, we get Ballister, Bal as he's called. His arm gets chopped off from Ambrosius, which is interesting. And then it's a matter of, it's been some time. Bal is still trying to figure out who framed him, because he didn't kill the queen. He was given a sword, which then turned into a weapon. The hilt turned into a weapon. And so what happens? So then he meets this character, Nimona, who happens to be the shapeshifter. And he's been trained his entire life to kill monsters. But that's the purpose of his job, is to kill a monster. And so it's a matter of what makes a monster. Good old Teen Wolf quote, "Not all monsters do monstrous things." I live and breathe by that. I have that displayed on our lawn for 2 months during the Halloween spooky season. Not all monsters do monstrous things. Who is the real monster? Nimona goes into that plenty of times. Are the humans are just constantly killing, in order to protect. Aren't they monstrous? I can't be myself because they deem me unworthy. How is that right? So then it's a matter of breaking down the patriarchy, breaking down the system. And then how do you break down the system? Well, you get a video of a confession of the director confessing that she's the one who framed Ambrosius. And then it's just a wild whirlwind of social media events, and then saying, no, it wasn't me. It was actually the shapeshifter. And then Nimona is confronted. And then Nimona and Ballister do some stuff to try to prove his innocence. And they team up together. And it's a great sidekick kind of mentality together. And then it's Ambrosius versus Ballister, and the two of them having conversations over nachos. Absolutely wonderful. But it's still a matter of, not a matter of what's right, what's wrong, but it's a matter of, why do you have to fight to live? How is that logical? How does that make any sense? You have to fight for the right to live. You're born into the world whether you like it or not, and you have to fight for the right to live. It makes absolutely no sense. No sense. Absolutely no sense. You don't ask to be born. It happens. And then you have to fight in order to live. Makes absolutely no sense. And that's the purpose of this film. It was a whole conversation piece. It was just so beautifully well done. I don't know how the hell this was rated PG, because this was talking about a lot of self-harm stuff as well, especially at the end. And I watched the credits to see if there was any post-credits. It was just Nimona spray painting a heart, but an anarchy heart, which was glorious. I've never seen that. But then there's a whole if you need help or if you need to talk to somebody, you know, reach out. And I was like, oh, because this thing was Nimona was trying to figure out, since she's the original monster who didn't actually fight Galorith, it was just how the story takes place, and then 1,000 years go by, and her whole thing through this was, people bring swords to my chest all the time. Why don't I just let them? And I was like, this is PG. This ain't no PG. What's going on right now? It's freaking the freak out. So the whole monster then attacking the city of, if they think I'm a monster, then maybe I am a monster and I'm going to wreak havoc. It was that whole villain era moment. And it was if people say that I am this way, maybe I actually am this way. And I'm going to embrace it. And then just Ballister just holding his hand out, his bionic hand, to Nimona when she's about to pierce herself. Bro, it was wild. And then having it televised, then everybody seeing it in real time, and then things changing after Nimona then sacrifices herself briefly for to get rid of the actual director who was going to destroy half the city, which was just a wild concept in general. This film was so wild. I loved everything about it. I also loved the Pizza Rat meme, dating back to 2015 when there was the New York City Pizza Rat who just blew up virally everywhere. And they used the meme, Nimona turned into a rat and dragged a piece of pizza through the subway. But it's this beautiful, glorious aesthetic of medieval, but future. It's not steampunk. Like, we've seen so many steampunk stuff. It's not steampunk. It's not even medieval punk. It's medieval future. It's just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. The way that the story progressed, and especially the will they won't they of Ballister Ambrosius, I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, what's going to happen? Is somebody going to kill the other person? Like, actually going to kill them? And what's the means of actually killing them? Or are they going to just say, no, love conquers all. I love you. You love me. Let's fight for each other. Let's help save the city from the toxic aspect that it actually is, the director. It was just such a amazing representation matters moment in general. But it was a really cool part that had no stopping of the plot. Like, yeah, like Ambrosius held back a bit fighting Ballister, and Ballister held back a bit fighting Ambrosius. But then it's a matter of, is he the villain? Is he the hero? Is who fighting who? And because they love each other, is that why they're not killing each other? But it was the characters. It wasn't the main focal point of the story. The main focal point of the story is not all monsters do monstrous things, and who's the real monster. That was the main point of the story. How do you go through the anti-disestablishmentarianism aspect to get rid of those in charge who have no purpose of leading? It was wonderful. I got tears. I gasped. I went, I choked. Because when I don't know how people gasp. This is how I gasp. When I gasp, if I gasp dramatically, I go, right? A dramatic, deep intake. But when I gasp surprisingly, when something actually surprises me and I gasp, my throat stops like halfway through. So I go, but it's like it stops. It cuts off the air. I don't know why. Maybe it's because like it's afraid something's going to fall in. Like my body's just afraid something's going to go down my throat. Maybe because I ingested a fly at one point when I was a kid, and like I felt it go into my chest, and it was just weird. And then I must have coughed it up at some point. But I remember I went to the hospital, and in the ER, the doctor was saying it's not possible. You can't ingest a fly. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, people drown. And that's ingesting a foreign object into your lungs. You're ingesting water into your lungs. So obviously something can get into your trachea. I've coughed on water plenty of times. I've coughed on my own spit plenty of times because it goes down the wrong pipe for some stupid reason. So I was like, I was young, and I was just like, things go in your lungs whether you want it to or not. And she's like, no, here's 2 Tylenol. And that was it. And I was like, okay. And this was horrible chest pain. This I don't know how it happened. I remember it happening. I was in the shed. I was putting stuff away. I breathed in, like I took a deep breath, and somehow this thing, that just fly just like flew in the path of my mouth as I was, and it was summertime too. It was hot, and I just went, and it got sucked in, and it went down. And she's like, "No, it's not possible." And I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, and I was like, "Then how do people drown? It's because water gets into their lungs." It was a moment. It was a moment. Anyway, the point of that story was that I was gasping, and my real gasps hurt, and I got I got pains in my throat because of my real gasping through this. But I got chills. I got goosebumps. I could not believe how incredible this was. I can go on and on and on about how amazing this was. We could talk about the score. We could talk about the cinematography, the camera pans and stuff. We can go on and on. I'm amazed at this film. I'm disappointed in myself that it's taken me 7 months to watch this film. But that's the point of this massive bound of reviews. I went through my list on Netflix. I had over 70 films, not TV shows. I had over 70 films, 70. I had over 70 films to watch and like 26, 27 TV shows to watch, something like that. We got some stuff, right? This is like 3 months worth of content that we got to get through. We got to talk about it. We're going to watch everything. Nimona was on my list. We're going through the list, not in any specific order, just what I happen to pick up in my notes on my phone. But I've wanted to watch this for a while. I'm amazed. And I'm so happy that I finally did. I cannot wait for the inevitable sequel. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And this was beautiful. I can't stress this enough, how gorgeous, from a story standpoint, from a it's okay to ask for help standpoint, from a representation matters standpoint, from an artistic aesthetic standpoint, that medieval futurism, whoo, bro, did not know I need that in my life. It was wonderful. Be some kick-ass Legos. In hindsight, technically, Lego did that with Nexo Knights. Technically, that was medieval futurism. Technically. Oh, look at you, Lego. Look at you. All right. I'm going to look into this some more. All right. Nimona, on to the next review. Mucho mahalo.